So I'm trying to get a yes or no. I'm not trying to get a speech. Is there a difference between women and men?
I think that there are definitions for biological sex.
Okay, so you're not answering that. Let me ask you this question. Title IX was a landmark civil rights law. It helped create the incredible breadth of women's sports and girls' sports that we see across the country. I believe in girls' sports. I believe in women's sports. I'm the proud father of 2 daughters who are both athletes. I think participating in competitive sports is a wonderful thing for a young girl. I think it is a wonderful thing for a woman. And I think, unfortunately, today's Democrat Party has decided that women's sports and girls' sports no longer matters, and they're willing to push radical legislation designed to destroy girls' sports and women's sports. Ms. Gaines, I want to thank you for your courage. You are relatively young, but you have demonstrated incredible courage. And because you have dared to speak up, you have been demonized, you have been vilified. I saw when you were attacked by a leftist mob at San Francisco State University for daring to speak up. You had an incredible record as a swimmer at the University of Kentucky. You were a 2-time NCAA All-American. You were a 5-time SEC champion. You're an SEC record holder and a 2-time Olympic trial qualifier. But yet on March 27th, 2022, something changed. What happened on March 17th, 2022?
That's when Thomas and I raced in the 200 freestyle and again resulted in a tie.
And so you tied. What was the consequence of tying?
We went behind the awards podium where typically you're handed your trophy, you're marched out, you're named an All-American. And so we go back there, and the official looks at both Thomas and myself and says, "Great job, but you guys tied. And we only have 1 trophy, therefore we're giving this trophy to Leah." And I question this, and I say, why? And at first, I shortened it in my testimony, but really he stumbled on his words. He didn't know how to answer this. And at first he's, well, we're just doing this in chronological order. To which I further pressed, and I said, okay, well, what are you being chronological about? Because we tied. And if we're doing this off alphabetical order, G comes before T. So what are you being chronological about? To which this wasn't a script they had prepared for him. And he actually appreciated his honesty. He did say, we have to give the trophy for Leah because Leah has to have it for pictures. They've made that clear. Leah has to have the trophy for pictures. You can pose with this trophy, but you have to give yours back. You have to go home empty-handed. Leah Thomas takes the trophy home. End of story.
Now, let me ask you, as someone who's competed at the elite level, in your experience, is there a difference between women and men?
Of course. I think we learned this at a very young age, watching even 12 and unders play. Going through puberty causes irreversible advantage, that no matter the training, no matter the diet, no matter any alterable change you can make, will overcome that male advantage. Especially in sports like swimming, where lung capacity matters so much. Even something as silly as throat size, men have on average a 40% larger throat, which sounds like it's nothing, but when you're grasping for air, that 40% larger throat makes a huge difference in athletic success, not to mention height. You guys know the differences.
Ms. Robinson, do you agree with Ms. Gaines that there's a difference between women and men?
If the question is about trans women...
I'm just asking, is there a difference between women and men?
I mean, what I can say is that the NCAA has rules in place. They've had rules in place for the last decade, and when this competition happened,
I'm going to try again.
The rules were clear.
Do you believe there's a difference between women and men? It's a yes-no question. Do you believe there's a difference?
Oh, I think that we're talking about this case with the NCAA.
No, I'm asking a question. Do you believe there's a difference between women and men? Most people could answer this very simply. I'm curious if you're willing to do so.
Oh, absolutely. I'm just putting it into the context of the conversation that we're having. I think that there are definitions related to sex.
Is that a yes? So I'm trying to get a yes or no. I'm not trying to get a speech. Is there a difference between women and men?
I think that there are definitions for biological sex.
Okay, so you're not answering that. Let me ask you this question then. Why do women's sports exist? If you can't define a difference between women and men, why not abolish women's sports and just tell little girls to swim with little boys and see who wins?
Oh, I'm simply saying that that sex is
My
different
question,
than gender.
why
and I do believe
why
that
do
women's sports have a great
exist?
value. I mean, Senator, I'll tell you right
Ms.
now.
Robinson, please answer the question I'm asking you.
Absolutely.
Why do women's sports exist?
I think that there are so many positive benefits to sports.
But
I mean,
why have a
we've talked
separate
about it here
category for
today.
women? If there's no difference between women and men, why to have women's sports?
A Senate hearing on the future of women's sports turned into a tense exchange as Senator Ted Cruz questioned witnesses about biological sex, fairness in athletics, and the purpose of Title IX. One of the hearing's most memorable moments came when former NCAA swimmer Riley Gaines recounted her experience competing against transgender swimmer Leah Thomas, and explained why she says that race changed her life. Here's what happened. Senator Cruz began by describing Title IX as one of the most significant civil rights laws in American history, saying it opened doors for generations of female athletes. Speaking as the father of 2 daughters, Cruz argued that girls deserve equal opportunities to compete and said protecting women's sports is consistent with the law's original purpose. He also praised Riley Gaines for continuing to speak publicly despite the criticism she has faced. Cruz then asked Gaines to describe the NCAA championship race that brought national attention to the issue. Gaines testified that she tied with Leah Thomas in the NCAA 200-yard freestyle final and expected both swimmers to receive equal recognition for the result. According to Gaines, she was told there was only one championship trophy. She said officials informed her it would be presented to Thomas during the awards ceremony and official photographs. Gaines testified that although she briefly held the trophy afterward, she had to return it before leaving. Cruz next asked Gaines whether, based on her years of collegiate competition, biological differences between males and females affect athletic performance. Gaines answered yes. She testified that male puberty produces physical characteristics, including differences in strength, size, power, and lung capacity, that she believes can create lasting competitive advantages in many sports. Cruz then posed a similar question to another witness. Rather than answering with a simple yes or no, the witness distinguished between biological sex and gender identity and pointed to existing NCAA policies that govern athlete eligibility. If you're enjoying this coverage, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications for more highlights from Capitol Hill and the biggest political hearings.
I'm saying that there's a difference between sex and gender, and that the NCAA has rules in place, which they have for the last decade.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to enter into the record an article from Duke Law called Comparing Athletic Performances for the Best Elite Women to Boys and Men. And it goes through examining in 2017 the top records for women in the world in various track and field events. So, for example, in the 100-meter, the top record for women in the world was 10.71 seconds. Now, that record for the number one woman in the world in 2017 was, in the year 2017, broken by 124 boys under 18. In that same year, the record for the number one competing woman in the 100-meter dash in the world was broken by a total of 2,474 men. If the radical Democrat agenda to destroy girls' sports and women's sports succeeds, little girls will not have a chance to compete. So I ask unanimous consent that this article be entered into the record.
Without objection. Senator Padilla.
Cruz continued the exchange by asking why women's sports exist if biological differences are not considered significant. The witness responded that women's sports create important opportunities for female athletes and said discussions about participation should carefully distinguish between sex and gender while considering current athletic policies. Cruz argued that separate women's competitions were created because of biological differences between males and females. He also cited athletic performance research, saying those differences have historically shaped how competitive sports are organized. The discussion underscored 2 competing perspectives. One focused primarily on competitive fairness based on biological sex, and the other emphasizing inclusion within existing eligibility frameworks. The hearing showcased one of the most closely watched debates in sports today. Senator Ted Cruz argued that protecting women's sports requires policies centered on biological sex and the original intent of Title IX. Other witnesses emphasized the importance of existing athletic regulations and the need to consider both sex and gender when shaping participation rules. As lawmakers continue to debate the issue, questions surrounding fairness, inclusion, and competitive opportunity remain at the center of the national conversation. What are your thoughts? Should eligibility for women's sports be determined primarily by biological sex, gender identity, current governing body policies, or another approach? Share your perspective in the comments, and if you found this breakdown helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video.